So do you think that we can learn, I guess you probably believe that we can learn from both the higher vibrational and maybe the more dense entities. Um, what do you think the difference is between like the forms of learning? Um, like maybe we learn from other people's experiences more with the hearing about their experiences and transformation with the more dense, but with the higher level people, that's just more of a kind of learning to resonate with the information.
That's a really good question.
Yeah, just curious what you think about it.
Well, if it's all right, I'm going to give an answer that Bella actually gave me because this was actually a question that I asked.
Oh, wow. Uh-huh.
And what she described, the metaphor is that imagine you're on your raft and you're connecting with the sky, like your galactic self, the big, what we would imagine as the universe out there.
Mm-hmm.
And you're essentially pulling in all this information.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to a point in the rapids where it's time to integrate and slow down.
Mm-hmm.
And then what starts happening is now you start pulling information from the depths, from Mother Earth.
Oh.
Both forms of intelligence, two very different feelings, different densities, different information.
Mm-hmm.
You could also use it to say like the masculine and the feminine.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine how rich of an experience you have if then you're in the middle and what you gain from connecting the two. And imagine, as I'm sure you've experienced, I have myself, where I've been not integrated in one area as I'm going through a transformation more than the other. For example, too much focus on the denser negative emotions, not enough focus on, the higher information, and then the other way around, where it's so much focus on the higher information,
Mm-hmm.
not being grounded.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it kind of goes into the idea of what Bashar talks about, whole systems.
Mm-hmm.
And just, I don't know, that there's really learning at every turn. I like to think that there are beings for every theme.
Uh-huh. I like that.
Yeah. So that she answered my question that way, and that really helped me because my question was about, why did I go through a process where I felt like I was ascending. I felt like I was ascending, and then I was like, now I'm going through this really dark period where I'm processing.
Mm-hmm.
She said they're both ascending. It's just that I'm less comfortable with the earth densities.
Uh-huh. Did she say how to help yourself become more comfortable?
Yes, by giving me that metaphor and realizing that it's just as important. And also she explained to me that, kind of what Bashar says all the time, like just go for the ride too. Remember that you having the experience is part of the learning. Like you don't necessarily have to figure out every single aspect. It's okay to be in the unknown and let the conversation happen through you.
Uh-huh.
You having the experience is the conversation happening, right? Like you are the perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You just being you is the story that's written.
I like that. That really takes you back right into the present moment.
Yeah.
Everything.
And have you found that for you, your journey has been, the ebbs and flows and the ups and downs and the...
Yeah, it has been really intense for earlier in my life especially, but I've learned how to kind of keep it at a calmer pace over the years. Um, so yeah, it hasn't really been that tumultuous compared to my early years, I would say. Um, I've just gained more skills like over time, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I just realized that this is like the ocean.
Yeah.
Water.
The waves, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Hmm. I still do go through that, but I was at points where I was like, I don't really reach this point anymore, but like it feels like total ego dissolution, you know, totally just at the bottom, and you wouldn't even care if you died a lot.
Mm.
Yeah, I've been to that place a lot, but actually it's kind of a comforting place, you know, like you have let go of any expectation or insistence at all, like nothing matters. And when I'm in that, when I have been in that place, I guess feel like the only place you can go is up from that point. Yeah.
Well, actually, then you're twinning with Bashar because doesn't he say his favorite place is the void?
The void. Oh, maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Matching his frequency. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you're tapping into something very wise.
Hmm. Yeah, I do. So, sometimes I also just, if things are getting overwhelming in my life, I also just remember the I exist, and that kind of just lets everything else fall away. You know, that's really the only thing I need to value myself for is my existence, basically.
The way that Bashar has laid out the, like, almost like the actual structure of negative beliefs has helped me so much as well. Because when I get really caught in one, I remind myself, I see the image of structure of negative beliefs, and I remind myself that, whichever way, that it's a light bulb within me that I've screwed in, or that I think the way he's described it is, if you're walking towards a positive, you're walking towards, in a dark room, the door open towards the light.
Mm-hmm.
And the closer you get to the door, the harder it is to open it. It's
Oh.
actually meaning the closer you are to shifting that negative belief. Because you're basically looking at the negative belief face to face. And then once you see it face to face, you're like, oh, now I have a choice. It's when you don't know it's there, or you don't realize that it's the negative belief, which is interesting because that's what we talked about in the beginning of the conversation.
Yeah, I found like sometimes I might try to trick myself and say, well, you know, if I'm having a negative emotion, usually the core belief is like that you're unworthy, that I'm unworthy. Like that's what I found. And so sometimes I just tell myself, well, that's why I'm in this situation and why I'm having this emotional reaction, because I believe I'm unworthy. But sometimes that doesn't shift it. What do you think? You know, you just, I guess that just means that that actually isn't the negative belief, or I'm trying to skip over a certain process maybe that I need to go through to actually feel that that is the negative belief, and to discover it without just saying, okay, I'm gonna, that's why this situation's happening because I'm unworthy. But it's still continuing to happen. So I guess it just tells me that there is more that I need to learn and discover about that situation, I think.
Oh yeah, I've been in that place many a time where I realize that, okay, there's still something I haven't uncovered,
Yeah.
or I still haven't, I still am letting go of some of the emotional aspects, or
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's more things that need to be done. And sometimes I'm just saying like, well, there's nothing else I can do. You know, I've done all I can do, and so I just kind of accept it, and that really sometimes helps a lot too. You know, and then things start to unravel in different ways. You know, sometimes I think, well, maybe I made an agreement to like go through this for someone else too. Like, that's a big one that I've noticed, well, what's that person gaining from me going through the situation? A lot. You know, they're learning something. Sometimes that helps a lot too.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think as long as you're honest with yourself
Mm-hmm.
and you're following the formula and you have those intentions, then you're doing what you can do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that if something doesn't shift instantly, then it's probably not because you're not doing enough, but you would know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
And
agree.
sometimes, yeah.
So here's a more a different type of, maybe a creative type of subject. Do you see like the interactions? I've heard Bashar say that the interactions are gonna like start to change between us with him. Like maybe that we would have more, maybe ask him more questions, maybe be able to share more of our own wisdom in the interactions. Um, do you have any like visions of what that could look like, or anything like crazy with the interactions changing before physical contact occurs?
Interesting question. Okay, well, since I'm this version of myself and what is most recently coming up
Mm-hmm.
is really understanding that anyone who feels very connected to Bashar's frequency obviously has connections. And so I think Bashar is obviously, like the head, the messenger, the guide, but that we all have our own Bashar as well, in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
and that we're all going to be connecting with that version and other connections related to that to help us. So it's like we'll be working with him and with our own connections, and then that will change the conversation very much.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
So is it going to be like we're kind of channeling our own Sasani counterpart while we're interacting with him, do you think? Plus, or is it just more of an energy, like with all of our connections?
Yeah, I think that could absolutely be a possibility. I see it almost more as like what I'm not even sure what will happen as we're connecting with him,
Mm-hmm.
but I definitely think that we're going to have so much more conversation with our connections also on the side, that by the time we go to talk to him or whatever will happen,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
It will be a little bit of a different conversation. We'll be able to skip over some of the questions in the past, maybe, or we'll be able to ask new questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I've definitely noticed that the hybrid children, that conversation has increased.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like there's a lot of information coming through from them for other people. So that seems interesting to me. So that seems like that's important as well.
Mm-hmm. I find it interesting that a lot of people have a negative reaction to hearing about the hybrid children so much. I wonder what that's all about. No.
Yeah.
Not, I mean, there's a lot of people who do glean a lot from it as well, but I guess maybe, well, who knows? It's their own journey, I guess. Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, as long as it doesn't offend anyone.
I don't have to publish everything. Yeah.
Well, I think I can understand both sides because for me, I was never like, screw the hybrid children. That's definitely not the case.
Yeah.
But I was, when I first started learning about Bashar, I was like, why do these people keep asking this question? Stop asking this question. It's the same question.
Yeah.
But now, where I am now, I realize, oh my God, I know exactly why they're asking that question.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, for me, I can say it was because I still had some fears, judgment to work out.
Mm-hmm.
Because maybe when I wasn't sure, well, one, I needed to learn what that meant.
Yeah.
but also I think I actually had this conversation with Gita. We were talking about
Oh.
our like compartmentalizing,
Mm-hmm.
and she said something really interesting about how for some people, I mean, we all do this to some extent, but it's more helpful to like compartmentalize.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, like some people believe in the spiritual journey, but the alien stuff is not kosher. Or some people it's the other way around, or, so I think it's kind of that. It's like they just, that part of themselves or that part of the mirror, they're not ready for.
Wow, that's so interesting. Because what you were talking about before with about the math stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So doesn't that help you like feel a little bit more open to that part of you maybe?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'd be so down if all of a sudden I got really excited about that stuff.
yeah. It's not my most exciting. Like I don't feel like it's totally relevant, but I have like delved into it a bit, and it's just really it does seem to like open doors in myself that I hadn't realized that were there before. A lot of potential, for our greater being, I guess, that we're moving into unfolding. So
Absolutely.
I think that's just every subject that Bashar brings up, we have the potential to integrate, you know.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I've definitely had times where he's talked about things that I'm like, that is fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
But I need to do some more research. I need to learn more. I need to, or some, when like quantum people who are into quantum physics ask questions sometimes, I'm like, I want to be able to do that.
Yeah, I know.
But, maybe someday, but for some reason there's a different journey that I'm more excited about, or,
Yeah. But you're starting to open up to like integrating the hybrid children into that journey now that you're
Oh,
excited about.
absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Big time.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you? What are you excited about recently?
Um, hmm. I had to pick a subject like that I hear Bashar talking about. It's exciting. I really enjoy hearing about how they live, their relationships, and channeling itself, and how parallel realities work, and like how we can live in the moment, and with memory being in the moment. I've really been like integrating that, which memory being created in the moment, like it's just another frequency that you can tap into, that you're creating this um, memory that's here and now. So I've just been really like working with that concept, and every time I have a memory, which it's actually seems like it's happening all the time, really, that we're pulling on what we believe we already know, but we're actually just shifting into another frequency, it seems like. So I've just been working a lot with that, and integrating that understanding into myself, living more in the moment, I would say, like, or just remembering that I'm more in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, pulling things into my experience as being alive and growing and real here and now,
Right.
not a set thing that happened once long ago, And I also really like what he recently came out with, is that we're going to be, it might not be recent, but I heard it on a recent transmission, like just being able to break down the walls within our consciousness, um, to be able to just move up and down the timelines and tap into whatever we need much more easily as these walls come up in our physical reality, like, so we won't see like different negative people and stuff like that as much anymore. We won't we won't experience the effects of it or be affected by it. But he also said at the same time that we're going to be taking down the walls within our consciousness, so we will have so much more access to all those other parallel incarnations that we have. stuff. So that's kind of what I'm really excited about now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes sense too, because we were talking about this earlier, I think, before we recorded the conversation, but how like you're so excited about information.
Mm-hmm.
And then when there are periods where you get a lot of clarity, you realize why it served you not to have the clarity.
Yeah.
Because you built this experience or this foundation. You know, imagine wondering about, oh, what if I could connect with a being? And then go from what if I could connect with a being to what if I could connect with my past self, then to what if I could connect with this ET and that being Sasquatch, and now to be like, what if I can connect with literally every connection I have or information? So, you know, obviously you need a little foundation so that you don't pop your head off.
Right. Become one with all that is immediately and just dissolve. But...
Yeah. Which I find that to be interesting. You know, I have nothing against past life regression, and obviously it makes complete sense to me. And I did that for a little bit, and then I lost the excitement. But I don't think I lost the excitement in the actual past lives. I think that I just understanding how Bashar describes it, realized that maybe I was more curious about future lives or understanding it as parallel incarnations. And so then I thought, you know, why am I not excited about this? You know, why would I cut off this part of understanding? But now I see that it wasn't that I was cutting it off. I was just now understanding it in a different way. Like you said, how when you shift, you know, everything else kind of shifts. Like your whole template is different.
Yeah. I wonder if there are parallel reality or parallel live specialists out there, like who are not doing past life regression anymore under those terms, but with more of a. Have you heard of anyone doing that, like with calling them parallel lives instead of past? Maybe that's the process that we're shifting into.
Yeah, I'm sure there are people.
Yeah. Well, it's been about an hour. Is there anything else that you want to talk about? Or
I don't think so. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
maybe one last subject. It's been really fun talking to you.
It has been really fun. It's crazy that it's just really exciting to get to know you because I don't know, it just seemed kind of obvious. You know?
That we had a connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just felt very safe, like right from the get-go.
Oh, good. Yeah, I felt that too.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Have you worked at all? I'm sure you have in your job and everything, but was looking at forgiveness here. Yeah, it was just the topic of forgiveness and how that can neutralize everything. And I think maybe there was a post about it too, where discerning between like enabling someone and not giving them the consequences so that they can learn, between that and true forgiveness.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a big topic for me for sure.
Really? Do you have difficulty discerning between the two, or is it just a process?
Yes. I think because of some of the belief systems I'm still working around, sometimes so what I've noticed is that in my past, I have tended to lean more towards forgive, 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 forgive. And again, it's kind of like that mountaintop analogy. I've actually been skipping the part in between where maybe I'm not actually ready to forgive that person. So the intentions are good, but you know how Bashar says, you know, sometimes your excitement or your anxiety is filtered as excitement. I think it's kind of like that. So now I have a much more balanced understanding of, okay, what is, so here's what I've discovered about forgiveness, and I'm still working with it. But what I've really discovered, I've discovered that I've gained more information from what we described as the Mother Earth perspective, pulling from the lower densities.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've learned is that, yes, of course, forgiveness is forgiving the other person, but really it has nothing to do with the other person. It's really about you forgiving yourself and being okay with yourself, and also being okay with yourself for either having the negative emotion or the reaction, or if someone did really cross your boundary, for allowing that to happen, whether it was your fault or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that once you focus more on that, with keeping the intention of your heart to forgive the other person,
Mm-hmm.
it's actually a much smoother process. And then it becomes more clear when it's actually time to forgive someone and when it's time to set a boundary.
Oh, that's very clear.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's another question I asked Bella too, which she was really helpful on.
Uh, that's cool. We've touched on so many questions that you asked her too,
Yeah, yeah.
expanding it.
Yeah. What about you? What do you think about that?
I really like that idea. So you were saying like to whenever you feel that kind of, I guess, need to forgive, it is about forgiving yourself and having self-love and getting into that space where you can have self-love. And that's a very good reminder about that. I feel like I've always, whenever a situation like that comes up now, I've been doing this so long that I always realize that I've created that. Like, even though I may feel like that situation, another person is doing something that I don't like and everything, but it's like that's so ingrained in me that I've done this to myself somehow, you know. And so that is, I agree about just going in and forgiving yourself for creating the situation. And the aspect about, I remember a Bashar quote. He said, sometimes the most loving thing you can do is provide a consequence for someone's action. Otherwise, they don't have any opportunity to change or to know, you know, that maybe what they're doing is not in alignment with the frequency of the relationship, something like that. So um, I'm just, yeah, I agree with what you said about that. Just going into yourself, and that will, forgiving yourself and going into the frequency of self-love. I really do think that then you can download the actions, because you're more in a state of excitement, or more in a preferred state, and you see clearly what to do next. Yeah, that's just the way the mechanics are. So just
Yeah.
reiterate what you said, basically, I think. And
And Bella said, oh, sorry, go ahead. You were talking.
oh no, I just kind of said what you said in a different way.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And like what you said about Bashar too, I remember there was this transmission. I don't remember how old it is, but this woman was saying how her roommate was kind of codependent and how it was bothering her,
Hmm.
but she felt bad about leaving him or something like that, which I could definitely relate to. Not that exact situation, but that feeling.
Hmm.
And he said, unconditional love is being your true self, not who you think your true self should be.
Uh-huh.
And that's kind of interesting because, like you said, the most loving thing for her to do in that situation was to take time or whatever she needed. And then he said, then you're setting yourself up for a more aligned reality, because if that person decides not to change, then you're still where you need to be.
Hmm.
But if you don't if you don't trust yourself and make the change you need to make because you feel bad, obviously it's case by case, then now both of you lose because that person hasn't changed and you're just resentful.
Hmm.
And then the other two things that Bella said that were really helpful is she said, um, some of these situations that we put in our life, for forgiveness, sometimes they're actually like lessons in self-love on purpose. Like it looks as if it's an opportunity to get hurt, but it's actually an opportunity to love ourselves even more. It's actually an opportunity to pull away from, I guess, whatever it is, like thinking someone else can devalue us or whatever, and to pull. And it may not happen instantly, but over time, as you see them as those opportunities, you'll start to connect more with that loving side. And what she said specifically for my need for forgiveness is she said, you will get more results if you forgive the part of yourself who thought that she had to be more spiritually evolved, etc.
Wow.
So
That's helpful information, definitely.
yeah, it's funny you asked that question because it's like I've been working on it for a long time. It hasn't been fun the whole time.
It hasn't. Wow. So I guess it'll just accelerate if you keep doing that over and over. You come to realize it sooner, like all the steps that this situation could possibly be bringing to your attention. That have you found that, or is it just like a rabbit hole that going deeper and deeper? Both.
No, actually, if it's okay, I wanted to share a synchronicity that happened recently.
Yeah, sure.
So basically, one of my challenges with forgiveness recently has been really wanting to be my authentic self and running into people who maybe aren't comfortable with that in a romantic way. So anyway, I've had some situations with that, which obviously has brought up pain and whatnot.
Yeah.
But as I've been learning about not only forgiveness, but also that, really understanding that it's my higher self put that opportunity so that I could learn, so that I could build a muscle to be like, no, there's nothing wrong with me. Keep being myself and stop even trying to be someone else for these people to be loved and accepted. And it's like each time I go through the ringer, more of myself comes out. Whereas in the beginning, it was like all of myself was lost and rejected. And so recently, I had an opportunity to kind of practice this new self-love. And I had a situation where I met someone that I really felt connected with. And it was just in the beginning stages, but, that person then essentially ghosted me. But I handled it differently because I was like, okay, number one, like I know this is happening because I'm in this process of learning anyway. What can I pull from this? How can I forgive myself? And I just told myself every time I thought about that person, like, you know what? That doesn't feel good and I deserve better. And I just kept tapping into that self-love. So a week after I kind of got the instinct that this person, whatever, wasn't able to be honest with me or got scared, I ran into them at a coffee shop. And it was hilarious. Like they were in shock. And they were so, one, conflicted, and then two, embarrassed, that then I felt like, not to be in my ego, but almost like I got to have the experience of watching them be like, and I ended up leaving, and they called me and basically were like, I didn't have the courage to tell you into your face, but like, I got kind of scared, and this is what happened, and I guess I really didn't communicate. And I had the opportunity to say, yeah, like, that's not okay with me to continue. Like, I need someone who can communicate. And we ended it with being like, wow, like, I learned a lot. I'm sorry that this happened.
Oh my gosh, that's just amazing.
It was like, I was shocked. I'm like, oh my God, what? And it was the moment it happened was like the moment I had really gotten to a place for myself where I said, this is okay that this happened. It doesn't change who I am.
That's amazing. It's just resolved for both of you after that, That's a wonderful story.
Yeah, it was fun. It was funny. And I hope that any person who ever feels rejected or whatever can know that those kind of things can happen. And what you've been talking about with these kind of new realities and new versions of yourself, like that happened because I didn't need to learn anything else from it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Wow. So it took about a week. Were you like in a processing state that whole week, and then you kind of came to that letting go totally at the end of that, would you say?
Yes, and also it took a week to really know, to really be sure that this person had actually ghosted me. It was one of those things where you know the difference between when someone's, not going to communicate or isn't being honest versus when someone's just busy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Especially when you had just been in close contact.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of just knew. And because I had been through it before, I was like, oh, here we go again.
Wow, it sounds like you really shifted your pattern though,
Yes. Yes. There's more than one lesson going on in it, but that was the biggest part, is not being so afraid to be myself.
Mm-hmm. Feels good, doesn't it? Just to allow yourself to be yourself. Mm. Relationships or not, it doesn't really matter if you're yourself,
It feels really good.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me wonder who's out there.
Uh-huh.
Like,
yeah, as you'll attract them as your true self.